Hi everybody, so today I'm going to show you how I've painted my Annabelle. Yeah, so just sit back, relax, and enjoy. So first I'm going to start off with this nude base. It is number 241 by Soaks, a jelly semi-translucent base. Yeah, and that's it. I'm just going to start from there. Next, I'm going to add some brown on my palette. I'm just going to start with that, create some shading, dark spots, just to create, the outline of her face. Some people like to draw first on a nail with a pencil or whatever, or just make outlines first. I really don't like to do that. I just like to look at the picture and just see where everything is at, like just I just paint by looking at something. I don't really like to do outlines first or measure things or draw lines on top of a picture and then draw the same lines on my nail and then start from there. um I don't know, it kind of feels like cheating to me. I know it's not, but in my mind, it kind of feels like, "Oh, I should be able to do this." But just looking at it, try to see where everything is at, where a cheek is compared to where the eye is, and then going from there, looking to where I should place the nose, that sort of stuff. I don't know why. It would be a lot easier if I were to draw lines before and whatever, but I just don't want to do that. Does that make sense? I don't know if anybody gets what I'm talking about, but um I just want to do things by eye and see if I can see what a face really looks like, proportion wise and that sort of stuff. So right now I'm trying to decide where I want to place the nose and eye. I'm gonna start with a painting, the shading of her eye socket basically. And the picture I'm using is a pretty dark picture with a lot of shading. Um, so I'm trying to get that in right now already. And I'm using the tip of my brush towards where I want the shading to be darkest, because the belly of my brush will also fade the color a little bit, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, so like that. And sometimes you will see me hovering above the nail with my brush. I'm trying to decide where I want to place things. Basically, where I want to um, see right now, I'm drawing a line inside my mind towards the nose. So I'm drawing the cheekbone towards the nose. And I'm constantly deciding, is this where I want to go? Does that match up with the eye, the space between the nose, the cheekbone, and the eye? Am I lining them up correctly? And I'm doing this as I'm looking at the picture, of course. So Yeah, that's basically what I'm doing inside my mind. So I'm constantly retracing and looking back and forth, deciding if the spacing is accurate, if I need to add more shading. Yeah, so that's what's happening. So I'm also trying to decide if I want to go ahead and paint her mouth already, or if I'm going to start somewhere else, because some portions of a face are pretty difficult to do, especially the eye and everything. But now I'm gonna start by painting the eyebrow in shading. Also, I'm gonna darken everything up later on. Um, yeah, because it will determine the length of the face and um, everything. So, yeah, I'm just carefully going about it like that. And I really um, don't like painting noses, they are so hard to do. Um, I always get them, the way I want it, but they are hard to do. So I've decided to do the mouth. I took away a little bit of her chin because it was too low. Her face was too long. Didn't like that, so I'm gonna start with the mouth. Do the shading first. And I'm gonna darken everything up later on and add some highlights and whatever. But first, I'm gonna do the shading and a basic outline. Um, yeah. So right now I'm gonna start to do some outlining of her lips. I'm using a dark brown. I hardly ever use true black or true white in my paintings. I've always added a little bit of brown or whatever to it because black and white is like really harsh, it's really it just tends to stand out too much. Um yeah, so I'm just drawing these lips on because they really do stand out in the picture too, and they're really, really dark. Um, yeah, so it's always a bit scary to go over it with a dark color just like this because if I were to try and wipe this away, I will wipe like half of my drawing away because if you're doing shading like this with gel polish, um, the biggest part of the color that is sticking is pigment, but not necessarily the gel itself, the part that will cure, harden, and will stick to the nail. Pigment you can just wipe away. If you understand the difference that I'm trying to explain, because they've added pigments to the gel polish, to give it color. Um, Doing shading like this, it's just the pigments that will stick to the nail. But most of the time, you will take away the gel inside it, if that makes sense. So I really don't want to wipe anything off because I will have to do a lot of it again. Yeah. So this is always a little bit nerve-wracking. It's pretty dark here. It's also because of the lighting and the way I'm filming. To me, I'm seeing a lot of color difference, and I'm wiping a little bit of excess off there, which will create a little bit of shading at the same time, because I'm gonna fill that up with some red paint later on. Yeah, so I've added the teeth a little bit, and her mouth is a little bit open. And yeah, so now I'm gonna go in and do some other dark lines, but I don't want to add too many lines because faces are soft. There aren't a lot of hard lines in the face unless it's a wrinkle like doing here, like her cheekbone. It's wrinkled because she's smiling, and then you will get a bit of a harsher line, but not very. So I want to keep everything as soft as possible and only add lines where they're, yeah, where I can get around it, of course. So this is a darker piece by her nose, and I've already created the shading around the nose. So I'm gonna um, fill up the rest with some darker spots, so you will get to see a nose later on, and some highlights. Um, yeah, so now deciding what I need to do next. And sometimes it's like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And then thinking, going back, do I want to start here? No, I want to start there. Sometimes it's a process, let me tell ya. So, um, yeah, once I've done a little bit more shading, I'm gonna go ahead and try and paint the outline of the eye. It's a doll's eye, of course, it's not a human eye. So, different in shape, obviously. So I'm just gonna do a basic outline. Her eye is not that difficult. Unlike a human eye, which is way more difficult to paint than a doll's eye, let me tell you. So yeah, just some outline, and then I'm gonna create some extra shading around it, darken it up, and that way I don't have to worry about getting the darkest shading in on top of the white of the eye. So I'm gonna add that in later. And I know if you're looking at the face right now, it looks a bit clownesque. I know it looks really weird, but these are just the soft outlines, the soft shadings of her face. I'm gonna get everything together later on, but this is a process. It is constantly applying layer over layer over layer, and then going back in brightness, or just going up in brightness, but just first the outline, and then I'm gonna add layers later on, adding the highlights, and maybe adding some different colors. So I'm gonna be mixing some different colors later on, getting different shades of yeah, lighter browns, I guess, because I will not be using a true white today. Yeah, so I know it looks weird, but in my mind, I already know where I'm, what way I want this to go and what layers I'm gonna add next. Yeah, and it just takes practice, just keep going, practicing. Start simple, then, keep your keep working on doing harder things, and you'll get there. But just keep adding layers. If you're not happy, you can always add lighter layers, add darker layers. Yeah, back on later on, it doesn't matter. Just keep calm, keep focused. Maybe take a little break in between and just keep going. With this shading, as you can see, I've already taken away a lot of the very bright parts because I don't need that many bright parts. Now I'm just gonna start by adding the white in the eye. It's not a true white. I've blended it heavily with brown, but as you can see, it looks like bright white on top of all this brown, but it's not. It's really diluted with brown. So yeah. And as I'm going, you will see me stop, and because I'm looking at the picture again, if um, if the eye is big enough, if I need to make it bigger. And I need to make it a lot bigger, but I'm trying to decide how big, how far is the eye opposed to her eyebrow. But then again, how far does it go all the way up to her nose, and how much space is there um, to her mouth, and how far does her eye go beyond the corners of her mouth. So that's the way I'm looking at a picture. I'm constantly trying to decide um, where everything is, you know. Yeah, so I'm just going at it like that, just, you know, taking my time, looking at the picture. How big is it? Where do I need to go? Am I happy with it? Looking at it again and again and again. And once I'm happy, I'll do a flash cure. So I've decided to use a blue cat eye gel for her eye. I thought that would be really nice, and it's really small, so you're not gonna see like a big reflective part of the eye. You know, it's just a little bit, just to give it a little bit of a shimmer, because you know it's, of course, there's a demon inside this doll. So I think that reflectiveness will give it the life look, you know, like there's something in there. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just trying to pull those uh, magnet parts in there, and this side of the magnet helped me a lot. See, there's that little shimmer. It will just give that little spark to the eye. Yeah, I really like that. And of course, gonna have to add the pupil and everything. So a lot of it is you're not even gonna see it, but it doesn't matter. It just needs to have that little spark. See, I love that. So now I'm gonna go in with a little bit of bright yellow, just to give it that highlight inside the eye. And I did draw a black line around the eye. Yeah, so I'm now just gonna give it some highlights on top of the blue, and I know it doesn't look that obvious on camera, but in real life you can really see that eye pop. And especially with those bright yellow highlights. Of course, they don't look as yellow on top of the eye. They look kind of like those, see, that green sparkle. See what I mean? I love how that turned out. And now it's time to do a little bit more work on her mouth. So I'm adding this deep red in here. And I know it looks like a big black blob on camera, but it's really not. There's really a lot of color difference in real life. So, you know, it's a shame you don't see that on camera, but there really is. But yeah, what can I say? It is what it is, right? Trying my best here. So now I'm gonna add some more black around her eyes. I just really want to create that depth, with those haunted, demony eyes. And I am being careful not to go inside her eye, because right now I am using black, a diluted black with clear, so it's really sheer. But it's black, and I don't want to go on top of the white with the black, because it'll look gray, and I don't want to have a gray eye. You know, those tones I'm using are brown, and they're not gray tones. It could be reddish tones too, but not gray. So I really don't want that. But I do really think, if you're looking at it right now, it is starting to get its shape, and I'm really happy where it's going right now. So I'm just gonna grab some more black, and then I'm just going to trace it along the eyebrow too, because you can really see her eyebrow through her hair in the picture. So that's what I'm gonna do next, once I'm happy with how this looks. And just a little bit more there because she needs to have her eyelashes coming through too. And I'm just taking my time and I'm not in a hurry. And I do have to say, I only paint things like this when I really, really, really want to. I could do it if somebody asked me to, um, but I tend to get the best results if my mind is really set to it, if my heart's really there. So just getting those tiny lashes in very carefully, very doll like, because it's not a person, once again, it's a doll. Oh, I messed that one up. That's not nice. That looks, I don't know. Yeah, fixed it. So that's good. Just a little touch up. And I have to add those eyelashes on top too. But I'm gonna add those top lashes later on because I have to do a little bit more shading and everything, and I'm not quite sure just yet where I want to place them, so I'm gonna do that at a later time. So right now, I've added a lot more diluted black here and there, um, because once again, it's a pretty dark picture. And like I said, it's layer over layer over layer. I'm working on the nose right now, which I always find pretty challenging, but it'll come together once I'm gonna add the highlights and whatever, because now it looks like I don't know, like a pig's nose. But it's going to get better, yeah, later on. Just have to be patient. Yeah, so a little bit more shading. Well, a lot more shading to do. I really like how her eye is looking straight at camera. It looks really, really evil. Yeah, so I've done a lot of shading. So now I'm gonna add some of that blood red for her cheeks. It's the same red I've used inside her mouth, and it's just a perfect red. Yeah, so I'm just going to give her her rosy doll cheeks like that, and just carefully dabbing it on there. And and it's the same thing with this color. It'll probably only leave the pigment behind on the painting. So if I mess up and I try to wipe it away, I will wipe away everything. Really don't want that. So if I mess up, it's better to use a lighter or duller color on top of it rather than trying to wipe it off, because you'll ruin your painting. Don't do that. Just cure it and add a different color on top. It'll be a lot better than trying to wipe it away. But thank God I didn't mess up. I'm just gonna keep going. Gonna spread that red glow on her cheek and everywhere. Just wherever it looks good. Oh, I wish you could see this painting in real life. Yeah, I'm really, really happy how it turned out in the end, and it looks so much different than on camera. But what you gonna do, right? I'm just gonna keep going and show you my process. So I've decided to use a little bit more red on the rest of her skin. Well, not everywhere, of course, but just around the edges, that soft glow. And like I said, it's brown toned and everything. And I could use red, just don't use black or white or grayish tones. It would look really, really weird if your basic tone is brown. So I've applied a lot of red, on the entirety of her face, and I'm gonna work on her teeth, adding some highlights. Ooh, messed it up a little bit, just dabbing with a wooden stick like that. You could do that, but just don't use a wipe and actually wipe. You can dab, but don't wipe because you'll wipe it all off. It would be such a shame. Yeah, so I've used the highlights and now I'm using a little bit of black again, dark brown, I mean, to add the shading on top of her teeth. And I know it looks really dark on camera, but in real life, it's not that dark. So, right now, another nerve wracking portion of this painting, I'm gonna have to add hair. So now I'm trying to decide where I want it, and I'm using the belly of my brushed um, thin out the gel where it was just too much. So now I'm creating those shadings of hair where they need to go. And they are overlapping her eyebrow a little bit. Right now I'm checking the picture if it's still good. And it is. Oh yeah, so now I'm adding the brown inside her eye, which I forgot. I know, I'm just going from here to there, from here to there. Whatever catches my eye, what I need to do. And I am still flash curing in between, but not with every layer, so the hairs aren't flash cured. So now I've worked on the eye a little bit, then flash cure, and then go back again. So now I'm gonna go add the highlights from her nose before I'm gonna go back in working on the hair again, because if I'm gonna add the highlight later on, it's going to be on top of the hair, which you don't want, of course. So yeah, so I know my brain is like all over the place when I'm doing this, but it works for me, so that's fine, I guess. So as you can see, I've already added a lot more highlights on her cheekbone and um yeah, on her nose and in the corner of her mouth, and I'm gonna add it underneath the mouth. And yeah, so right now I'm just searching for places where I need to add those highlights. And really, I'm not using it. I'm just using the minimal amount of product because I really don't want those highlights to be too harsh, because it would look weird. I just wanted to give that glimmer. And once I'm pretty happy with that, I'm gonna go in and work on the highlights on her mouth. Just very carefully adding those highlights, those glimmers, to give you a sense where her lips are and everything. But I really want to be careful not to add too much. Just needs to be glimmers. They don't need to be like thick hard spots. I'm sorry. Sometimes I just don't know what I want to say and it comes out stuttering. So again, didn't like that. So I'm just dabbing with a wooden stick, not to ruin all the other work. Once again, don't wipe. Just don't. Very carefully again, getting in there, getting those highlights. And I'm always holding my breath when I'm doing that. A little bit of highlights back in with her teeth, just the tiniest amount, because, screwed that up, made it look like she needed braces. And then again, back in, get it where I want it to be. And I'm sorry, I'm always almost out of frame. I don't realize when I'm doing that because I'm concentrating like really, really, really hard to get it where I really want it. And once I'm done with that, it's time to work on those highlights on her nose. Give that nose a little bit of shape because right now it's just one big black blob. Yeah, so I'm really taking my time here because, if you mess up the nose, the face will look really weird. Well, I think it goes with probably about everything in a face, but definitely the nose. But yeah, I just keep working on it until I'm satisfied and happy with how it looks. Um, yeah, so now I'm gonna add the little sparkle inside her eye, just carefully, and I'm not happy with that. So carefully taking my wooden stick and dab it away, just very carefully, and picking up some color, going back in again. Ooh-bah, like that. And yeah, just slightly bigger, slightly. Yeah, I'm even holding my breath, you know. Doing this voiceover is really bad, I know. So now I'm making more highlights in her eye, you know, where her eye socket ends, and um so ever so lightly creating a very tiny lines of white. I call it white, but it's really not white. It's a brown, but a very light brown, and it looks white on camera. Yeah, but really carefully adding in those highlights to really give it that depth. So when I started editing this video, it was 1 hour and 30 minutes long. And I did this in 3 hours, I believe, maybe a little bit more, but not a lot more. And yeah, so I really needed to make it a bit shorter because it was really long, you know, and really tedious. And back in, and again back in, you know, color over color. Yeah, so it's been quite a chore editing this video, but it's fine because I'm really loving the outcome. So I did add a little bit of highlights on her lashes because I felt that it was overlapping too much with the dark around it. But yeah, ever so lightly. And as you can see right now, I'm creating her hair. Just pulling in those very thin lines of, I believe it was a lighter brown. Yeah, so I'm just getting those stripes in because, you know, I've already created the shading of her hair. So I just need to do some layers and give it that depth. And that's what I'm doing right now. I've added some highlights on top, and now I'm deciding where I want to pull those ultra thin white lines to create the highlights on her hair, and you know, create the illusion how they are falling in front of her eye and over her face. So very gently, very lightly pulling that white. And I really don't want to have a fully loaded brush because it would leave too thick lines. I want it to be really thin, like a hair, you know. So if you're loading your brush, just load it like it's all like there's almost nothing there. Just pull the hairs through the paint. Make sure that all the hairs are touched by the paint, but don't fully load it, you know. Wipe it maybe a few times on your palette to get those very thin white lines, just like that, just to get those highlights in. And I am sorry that I keep going just a little bit out of frame. I am trying my best not to, but yeah, it's really hard sometimes. Right now, doing all this, it's really starting to come together. And I still have a long ways to go, but it's fine. Just creating a little bit more highlights over here. Oh my god, if I'm looking at the screen, it just looks so dark. but it's really not that dark in real life. Well, it's dark, of course, but sometimes when I'm looking at it, looking at the video right now, it looks like a lot of dark blobs, but it's not. There's really a lot of definition and shading and different kinds of color. So I was constantly out of frame, but yeah, I drew that blood tear using a very, very bright red, which looks orange right now, but it's really, really bright. So, and I'm gonna go over it with the same red that I've used on her cheeks and in her mouth. And I'm just going to create that darker shading in the tear. Like that. Pull it down. And make a droplet at the bottom. Just ever so lightly, because I do want the bright red to shine through also. And I'm just going to darken it up a little bit more. So I did a flash cure in between. Make sure it's darker, because I'm gonna add some highlights later on. Also, oh, I just love that eye, don't you? Looking at that eye with the blue cat eye and then the bright yellow dots on top. I'm really happy about the eye. Well, it's a good thing to be happy with your own work, I think. So I'm pulling it inside the eye socket. And now I need to add the highlights to make it look wet. Very carefully adding that in. So I'm really happy with that. So now it's time to go in with my Top Gel No Cleanse and top it off and add some final more detail. So let me tell you, it was really, 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 really difficult to get the lighting I needed to be able to show you guys how it turned out, and I'm not sure if I'm happy. I'm just gonna I am pretty happy with that first close-up though. You just saw yeah, but it just doesn't show up like it does in real life. It's just it came out so good, and on camera it's really hard to show you because it just keeps looking really, really, really dark. But it's kind of like this, kind of with a lot of different colors and shading and highlights, and just right like now it's really hard to tell. But so yeah, so I'm just gonna let this roll out like that, whatever. I even filmed a little part outside, which made it look pretty good, but it's really reflective, so that was another issue. So yeah, I'm trying my best, but yeah. Anyways, I am really happy how it turned out, and thank you all so much for watching, and I really hope you've liked this video. And yeah, I'm gonna leave a close-up at the end of this video. And yeah, what more can I say? I wish you all a very good day. Goodbye.